So for those who haven't heard us yet, this is our second day. We're going all week on women's health. And yesterday we had hormones and periods, which was great actually. Yes. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and posted in the podcast. So this will be in a podcast version as well for you, or if you missed this. So good to listen to your conversations. Thank you. Hey, Tara. And we have lots of questions today to cover because it's Fertility Day. And we were just speaking just a second ago. I just looked up some stats about fertility. And I said, so the WHO say it's 1 in 7 couples are infertile.
Yeah. And,
you kind of weren't surprised, were you?
Well, not really, but I think there's a bit of a misdiagnosis of infertility there because there's so much confusion. I see a lot of young women classed infertile, and you think, well, there's a lot of factors that are being missed, and they're just being put in that banner and straight off to the IVF or fertility or something like that. And I think there's probably steps that need to be taken first before they jump in and say, you're not fertile and you need to go down this huge, big, expensive path. Yeah. So.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think it seems to be common? Why are these women struggling? Well, not just women, it's the men as well. I don't want to pinpoint it just for the
I think a lot of focus obviously is on the women, and it's almost like it's our fault because it's our bodies and that sort of thing. Yeah, but it's 50-50. There can be sperm issues there that aren't being looked at, and often they're not looked at for maybe a year, and then all of a sudden they get picked up, and it's like, if that got, assessed maybe 6 months ago. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of this toxicity and inflammation and stress, all the things we see that cover hormones in general are obviously still affecting the fertility side of things. So, there's a lot of underlying, I think if people just naturally got healthy and well really early on before it became so urgent, they'd have a bit more time up their sleeves. So I really encourage people to think about it, a year out, really start encouraging looking at their diet and their toxicity and their, any health conditions, because those health conditions are going to, unfortunately, impact on their fertility potentially.
Okay. So it should be a year out. You should start planning.
Well, yeah,
really.
I think so. I mean, I think we say 3 months from if we knew someone was fertile and they're having a regular cycle, but if you had cycle issues and you weren't feeling healthy, maybe your partner wasn't, as healthy as he could be, some drinking or smoking or something like that, really, if you've got the time up your sleeves, I encourage people, a good 6 to 12 months prior, just to start chipping it away at it so it doesn't feel so, scary, I guess, thinking, oh my gosh, we've got 3 months to do a detox and clean up our diet, and that can be quite stressful in itself. So
definitely.
Yeah.
What if they had been on the contraceptive pill? Would it still be a year, or would they have to have a longer time to come off of it?
No, that would be fine. Generally, we say 3 to 6 months to get the hormones properly out the body and maybe the body a bit more balanced. So I think that would apply for the same on the pill for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned a few things there about what people can do if couples are struggling or if they want to have a baby.
Yes.
What are the other factors when it comes to people struggling, or what should they be doing?
Yeah. Well,
other than nutrition, like you mentioned.
Yes. So the biggest thing I see in clinic is people with irregular periods that are trying to fall pregnant, maybe been trying for a year plus, and haven't really pinpointed their ovulation time. So, they might be totally missing their ovulation date, which I think is a little bit of a trouble, because if you don't know when you're fertile and ovulating, you could potentially be missing the day every cycle. So I think people need to get clear on their ovulation and
it's
what
just
that
2
means.
days, isn't it?
Well, that's right.
Month.
I mean, in a good rate, you might get 6 or 7 days sperm life, but that's on a really strong sperm and good conditions. So we wouldn't say, we generally say 2 or 3 days are fertile in that time, and give or take.
How are they meant to know?
Okay, so, and this is the problem, I think we talked about this yesterday. There's the apps that women are following, and they think that they're, fertile because their app tells them that they're fertile in that time. But you know, from a fertility point of view, we really need people understanding the temperature method. So getting a good understanding of the drop before the rise, which indicates your ovulation. And then, you know, it should drop back down a bit and continue on. If people are getting no dip and rise anytime throughout their cycle, then I would consider, you know, no ovulation. Or if they're getting this ovulation shift in their temperatures, maybe a week before their period, that's not enough time to build up the lining of the uterus to sustain a pregnancy. So, you know, that's when we talk about luteal phase defects. And that's an issue. You know, some people don't realise that if you don't have a long enough gap between ovulation and your period, you know, that can be an underlying problem there. So we need to really be tracking, you know, when is ovulation? Is it 2 weeks out? Looking at the temperatures, maybe using some LH test strips. And, you know, I'd really encourage people to kind of get in contact or, you know, do some learning for themselves about it, because it's a whole big area. It can be a bit overwhelming. But I think, you know, the temperature's the fantastic way. I think, you know, it's a lot cheaper, and rather than doing these ovulation strips every single day, especially on a regular cycles, you could use them for 2 months and not get a positive. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Anyone who's on here, I see a few people jumping on. Just give us a wave, say hello. Feel free to ask questions as we go, because we'll be answering. There's been some collected from last week and the week before that we're going to be answering here as well. So you mentioned tracking. Just explain to me the so the 2 days. What is it that women really need to know when it comes to fertility, in your opinion?
Well, so I mean, with the ovulation, it's probably even the mucus changes. Like, we haven't really chatted about that too much, but people I think need to learn their mucus changes and realise, you know, what a sticky, fertile mucus is, and, you know, the more slippery, fertile mucus, because these are really indicating what's going on a hormonal level. So understanding your fertile mucus, understanding your temperatures, but also understanding how much your stress and your lifestyle and your diet and your hormone balance is impacting on your fertility. Because I think that's a bit of the misnomer, in the sense that, I'm ovulating and I'm trying every month and I'm not falling pregnant. But majority women are seeing this. I'm seeing this a lot with women using IVF centres who can't fall pregnant due to, you know, other health conditions, but they're stressed, they're unhealthy, you know, blood sugars are a mess. They're not feeling good, and they're not falling pregnant, and the IVF, you know, isn't working for them. So, and this is, you know, all areas, but we need to be looking at what your nervous system is doing, what your stress is doing, because that's, it's just such a huge one for fertility.
That seems to be a big factor, the stress thing. Like, I've spoken to people who have been trying to get pregnant, and then they ended up just sort of giving up, relaxing. They bought a puppy. And within 3 months or something, they got pregnant. So it's like,
that's right. It's like the holidays, you know, they go on holiday and
go on holiday, plan something. That's what they say. Plan something else. Take your mind off of it.
A lot when people commit to an IVF and they almost feel like that pressure's gone off of them, and they're like, feel that relief. Right. The relief's there, and then they fall pregnant because, you know, that brain stress, and the brain and the ovaries, you know, they talk so much. So we need to remember, you know, that's, if that brain is feeling stress, there's no way it's going to communicate properly. It's going to send out stress signals.
Definitely. There's a few guys on the lives here. I want to hear from you as well. Because,
hi guys, I've seen a few of those names popping up. They've probably jumped on thinking, what's Jacqui doing on there?
I want to hear from you guys as well. Questions about fertility and things like that. Let's talk about a success story you had. Someone that you've been working with. That's always good.
Yeah, definitely. And I've got a few at the moment, IVF and non-IVF clients, and
so people who are currently going through IVF.
Yes, that's right. Which is great, because, you know, they're seeking, I guess, other methods. They've got, both of them have got endometriosis and adenomyosis, similar profiles that those women had, and it was interesting. They both presented very similar. We've had one fall pregnant, the other one still. The other one actually felt so good that she didn't want to go through IVF because she was enjoying feeling so good just within herself. But we did a lot of, the gut and the liver, and I mean, endometriosis is a whole nother topic, but, we addressed a lot of the endometriosis symptoms and inflammation, got the gut back to, moving well and all that sort of thing. But for both of them, it was the blood glucose actually and the stress that we've been looking at. So the stress, and especially even with IVF, so these are people that, obviously having the hormones to help them, but the stress, and obviously we want to make sure the pregnancy maintains with good progesterone. If there's stress there, that's just not going to happen. So we did a lot of meditation, looking at sleep, and then with the blood glucose, we made sure they were getting rid of their carb cravings. So I see a lot of women struggling with, the carbs and the sugars going up and down throughout the day, and the energy. So that's, and that's, I think we need to remember with fertility, it's still looking at the body as a whole. So it's whatever you're feeling isn't working for you, that's probably what needs to be addressed. If you've got autoimmune or you've got allergies or fatigue, these are probably the things the body's feeling unbalanced for, and address those. So, I think we need to think a little bit more. It's just fertility, it's just our hormones, it's just my ovaries or whatever. Our body works as a whole, and if we're not addressing the whole body, then chances are fertility can show up as an issue. And this is, I think, where the higher statistics are there, but maybe not. If people were addressing their health, potentially we wouldn't be seeing it. So I love the effects of keto, like a plant-based keto diet. I find that works really well. Small amounts of meat and eggs if people like that sort of thing. But really cutting down the carbohydrates and, getting the sugars sorted can be amazing for fertility side of things.
Yeah, because I love that you're taking it as a whole, because it isn't just about that. Do you often find that it's I was speaking to one girl who was saying people know that they've been trying to get pregnant, so every day at work it's like, has it happened yet? Is it gonna work? And then she's constantly reminded, and she's constantly saying like, no, I'm still not pregnant. It's like putting it out there to being like, no, still not pregnant. It's just this upset.
And I think subconsciously on many women's brains, especially if they've been trying for a long time or they've had miscarriages, there's that mindset that this isn't going to work. Maybe I'm going to miscarry again, and that energy carries some purpose in our body, in the sense that unfortunately if we're thinking negative thoughts, and I know it's very challenging, it's something people need a bit of coaching through, but it's a big part trying to block out that and just really keep that positive mindset regarding the fertility, because otherwise that can be a stress. It's another stress on the mind and the brain.
It's so true. And like back, I don't know, 5 years ago, I thought that was a bit woo-woo, a bit bullshit. Like, just put out positive thoughts and everything will work. But it's true. It really does impact your body.
It's a big, and that's right. And it's not, I'm not saying it's the be-all and end-all, but I think it definitely makes up a percentage of where people are at and, how their experience can be. And even if it's not going to change the outcome, at least it changes that journey a little bit for them and makes it not so exhausting, really, because it's such a process and such a draining headspace for so many women with the fertility. Definitely. So
hello Alison. That's my mother just joined us.
Oh really?
So going back, because I want to touch on the mental health side of things, because it's such a big thing. And one girl in particular I was talking to, she was saying how, well, my doctor told me when I was 18, she's now like 32, that I would never be able to get pregnant. So I've kind of just given into the fact. And it's like, what? Your body can change so much.
Exactly. That's right. And this is where we see the PCOS and the endo sort of story as well. Women told that they can't fall pregnant or go on the pill and, all this sort of thing. So it's, and I think we need to remember that just one person's opinion, that obviously everyone's got an opinion, but maybe reaching a little bit further for people and looking into other alternative medicine or therapies, because, you know, your body, I always think our bodies are designed to heal. You know, we've got the innate ability in us to heal ourselves. We just need to obviously give it the right tools and the right support. And obviously
your body wants, your body wants to be in balance. Hugely. I think we just interfere with it.
And we don't realize how imbalanced we've become because everyone else around us is imbalanced, and we felt like this for a long time. So it's not like one day we're like, oh, I feel really imbalanced today. It can be a gradual process from, you know, maybe teenage years even now, where people just slowly, their health declines, and then all of a sudden they actually feel rubbish, and they've got, you know, a list of health conditions and symptoms, but almost consider that to be normal. And when they start to think about fertility, those things aren't a factor in their head because that's been their life story, and, you know, it doesn't seem to ring as an issue for them.
Another big thing is, I know we spoke about stress, but it seems to be that women who are underweight as well. I know we talk about people who are overweight, but it's also the underweight too.
Yes, exactly. And that's just a survival mechanism. You know, obviously if your body fat percentage is low, our bodies are very innately clever, and that's where the stress comes in. You know, the body will think not enough body weight to support, you know, a fetus, and we're not going to sustain a pregnancy here. Plus, obviously, the issues with, you know, potential hormone problems and ovulation that low body fat brings to it in itself. So, you know, people really need to watch this exercise craze in the sense that we need to be careful. And the high intensity, that's another stress on the body, you know.
So much so. People don't realise that it actually does cause stress to the body, and you're better off doing yoga.
Yes.
Or go for a walk. And not realising
totally.
that, you know, CrossFit and HIIT stuff is just
too much
intense
for so many women. And I love that in the sense that if people are feeling good and they've got no underlying health problems, adrenals are good, you know, stress response is good, sleep's good. But I get so many women that are struggling so hard to, you know, shift the weight. They've got poor energy. They're feeling absolutely exhausted, and they're putting themselves through 5 days of high intensity exercise. And I have to say to them, look, this probably right now isn't the right thing for you. Let's, you know, calm things down, reduce the stress response, get the healing
Thanks
happening,
for the hearts.
And then you can get back to, you know, doing those things that you might love when your body's a bit more resilient to those things.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Hannah says, I'm so glad to hear this. Much prefer yoga and walking to HIIT. Exactly.
I think do what your body tells you. Like we know what we feel good doing. If you're coming home from a session feeling absolutely wiped and exhausted, that's not for you. You know, yes, there's obviously a certain degree of a good cardio workout and a bit of fatigue, but you know, if it wipes you out for the whole week, or you've got muscle aches and ongoing for months on end, you know, you need to probably have a think about another strategy, perhaps.
I think we're very much, as I've got my the yoga instructor on here who qualified me, and she's very much about, you need that balance in your life with the yin and the yang. We're very yang. Stress, rush from next thing to next thing, traffic, and it's like, and then we add on the exercise, stress.
Yes.
There's no like, just breathe.
No, there's not. And it's not that. I think self-care is getting a lot further, but it's still that guilt, and it's still, you know, I try and educate women on the fact that self-care is actually about your hormones and how well you ovulate and produce your hormones. And that seems to help women almost want to do the self-care a little bit more, because all of a sudden it's I've got an actual reason why the self-care is going to help, because often we don't realise that, you know, going outside and reading a book or going for a walk is actually going to benefit in so many areas. So we disregard it as,
it's such a big thing, isn't it? Yeah. Especially with women, I think we feel like it's selfish to put ourselves first.
Yes. And it's, you know, I mean, we've all struggled with it, and I think every woman at some point is going to struggle with finding that time for self-care and you know, finding the time really, I guess, and making that time for it. But it doesn't have to be huge. It could be literally, you know, 5 minutes in the morning or at the end of the day, just something to ground you, that you feel good doing, you know, that brings that nervous system down back into that parasympathetic. I love the parasympathetic and the vagus nerve.
Yeah,
you know,
me too.
They all need some love.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to go through some of these questions that we have,
Yeah,
just because, and anyone who has questions here, feel free, ask. If you've just joined us, say hi, give us a wave, or give us some hearts.
Yeah.
Hannah's here, asked a question. As an exhausted mum, I feel energized from a couple of hours reading a book or walking alone. I feel like I've done a workout, just getting the girls ready to go out in the morning. And that's fine. Like, listen to your body.
Exactly.
It's okay. I think we
Yes.
put too much pressure on ourselves to be this like superwoman.
Oh, yes. And push through. Like, people come into me and they're exhausted and they're pushing, and it's like, this is not serving you right now. You are absolutely exhausted. You know, and there might be flexibility slow down, but still we feel that need to keep pushing and keeping up with everybody. And sometimes I say to people, you need to take a month off, as in keep working, do what you got to do.
Oh my God, I bet that didn't go down well.
I know, but say no to those things that aren't necessary right now. So if you don't have to do that catch up, or if you don't need to go out and do that errand or that appointment, just delay it for a month. Give yourself 4 weeks of, you know, doing the minimal as you can with that kind of yoga and meditation, replacing it with that. And it's amazing how much the nervous system can reset during, you know, a nice block of sleep and restorative processes.
Definitely. I think it takes practice though, because society puts pressure on you. And I know, for one, since I've been doing some more downtime since like my last few weeks of pregnancy, I feel guilty.
Yes.
Some days where I'm like, I haven't had time to do that because I felt so exhausted, and then I'm like, I should have done it. Like,
the should have, you know,
should myself.
What do they call it? Should have isle, you know, the island where all our should haves land, and all these things we say to ourselves that put extra guilt.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just okay.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, you know, for a lot of women, even if, you know, maybe husbands at work, partners at work, we have trouble maybe if we have some time in the day to switch off, because we feel that guilt that we're at home, maybe we feel guilty that we should be just pushing all day. But I think, you know, a lot of the time it's the mums that are home at night doing that night routine, getting up in the middle of the night. And if we're not just taking that little mini chunk of time in the day, then literally we can be, you know, on 24/7. We just we need to grab those little opportunities, because the men, bless them, but when they feel tired, I do find that they have that ability just to slow down and sit on the couch and just say, oh, I'm just going to put my feet up. And a lot of us struggle with that, but it's, you know, we probably should look at that a little bit more, in the sense that good on them for slowing down when...
Definitely, we can learn. We can actually learn from men.
We could.
I asked someone like an hour ago.
Don't want to admit it, but...
I know. Do you think men stress more than women? And he said, well, yeah, probably. I think men just know how to shut off. And they don't have that guilt, because...
No.
Why would they have that guilt? Because they fancy a rest.
yeah, exactly. Their body's telling them it's time to rest, and that's what they'll do. I know.
Okay, questions.
Yes, questions.
I know there was one top one was, how can I ovulate again?
Yes,
this is one of my friends who was saying, you know, she's been struggling.
Yes.
And she just she wants to know.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously the first thing would be ruling out any reasons why people aren't ovulating. So the main would be the PCOS side of things. So I guess, you know, just checking that that's not an issue for people. And we're going into PCOS, is it tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
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 So we can talk more about that then. But, you know, PCOS, just make sure that that's not the cause of your ovulation issues. And also just to note that you can have a period without ovulating. So don't get into that trap of thinking just because you've got a regular cycle that ovulation is happening as well. So this is the other fertility issue that people think, you know, periods regular, you know, they could go months and months on end, but they may not actually have fertile symptoms and ovulation happening. So to actually get the brain talking to the ovaries again, we need to, you know, it's about taking the stress off the brain. So all those stress things we've just talked about, the meditation, the yoga, and I think it's better to break it down into small little chunks across the day. So maybe 5 minutes 3 times a day, so that the brain's constantly got a reminder to calm down and come down a level. There's some fabulous herbs for ovulation, and Vitex would be one of those that we would use. So it's you can get it from, you know, all your good health shops, but probably either working maybe with a practitioner. You know, it can work well it's hard to obviously give doses and things for a broad range, but generally Vitex is very good for encouraging the brain and the ovaries to start talking.
Is it okay for people to take Vitex if they haven't seen a practitioner?
Yeah, generally speaking, on a low dose, there wouldn't be an issue. I don't like people taking it when they have their period, so we like people to have a bit of a break if they're taking it. So stop when you've got your cycle, and it's always best taken in the morning because that's when your pituitary is most active. So it does work better in the morning.
Hope you're all taking notes, guys.
So that can be a really good one. But also, I actually find the stress herbs are probably even more beneficial. So things like your rhodiola, withania, ashwagandha, that sort of line of, adrenal and stress support and your B vitamins, your magnesium, because they help the body cope with the stress. So we'd be looking at, helping your body cope, but also I think it's a nice way to put maybe a bit of a list down as to what's causing your stress as well. So we need to remember that it's not just, we often think of like mental stress, like workload as being our main stresses, but we need to remember environmental stresses. So if you work in an environment where there's toxicity, that's a stress on your body. If you've got a infection, so if you've got a gut infection, a SIBO infection or underlying gut stuff, then that's a stress on your body. That's a chemical stress. Then we've got the emotional stress, and the big one I want always people to be thinking about is the fear of the unknown. So they actually say the fear of the future is one of our biggest stresses as humans, because we are constantly fearing what's next and what's happening, and that puts the body into a state of stress pretty much all the time. Helping, maybe doing some work with someone to clear out any of those fears that people have, and that can be around pregnancy and around fertility and how am I going to be a mum, and what's
especially if you're watching these horrendous films like One Born Every Minute. People need to stop watching that.
So much scare, and that's right. There's so much out there now in the media, of things that are happening to people, and obviously there's probably been an increase, so people are thinking more often than not, maybe that's going to be me, that's something that happens to. So there's going to be that fear there happening. So with ovulation, I generally find if people follow those sort of things, we would normally find maybe within about 3 months people start ovulating. And I've had this happen with women, not for fertility reasons, but for perimenopausal, who maybe don't ovulate or don't have a period for almost a year, and then we start doing these techniques, and all of a sudden their period reappears. So, no matter what age and what you're going through, it's the stress, working out what your stressors are. So, what's actually stressing the body out. Because we can support the body as much as possible. But if you've got a big stress happening, then, we need to do the best we can to remove that stress or help your body cope and deal with that stress as much as possible.
I think that's where it helps working with someone, a coach or something, because they can actually dig into your lifestyle and pick out areas where you may not have even thought it was a big deal.
That's right. Yeah. And I think, I see a lot of people that have had a stressful event maybe a couple of years ago, and we talk to them about that their nervous system's actually stuck in that sympathetic dominant state of a fight or flight response. So a lot of the time we think it has to be happening right now, but it might have been a year ago or 2 years ago, and it might have just shifted your whole nervous system, and your nervous system's never properly recovered. And
you're still thinking about it as well. You're still
it hasn't been dealt with,
holding on to that. For sure.
Exactly.
Thanks, Arkella. These are the earrings that Arkella sells. Just a little small pitch there. Who's come on? She's a yogi.
Oh, beautiful.
Amazing. So I hope that's helped
hopefully
answer that question.
Yeah.
Next one, question about, I kind of helped answer this, but I want you to cover this actually. Question about thrush and candida. Do you know what candida is?
Okay.
So and if it can affect getting pregnant. So she said functional doctors say it doesn't, but alternative health practitioners say it does.
So, and this is where we start thinking about really an imbalance in the body. So it might not directly affect fertility. I don't believe in the sense that, you've got candida, so you're not going to fall pregnant. But it would show, there's a stress on the body. So the body's having to deal with that. So in a roundabout way, I would imagine, yes, it could affect someone's fertility. But what was the other half of that question?
Can it affect getting pregnant? Functional doctors say it doesn't, and alternative health practitioners say it does. So she's confused.
Yeah. And so the hormonal component there is probably more, I think, what you might be looking at. So if you're finding that it's cycling in the sense that it's worse before a period or with ovulation, I find most women struggle with the estrogen component aggravating their candida overgrowth. And if it's not dealt with properly in the sense of, you know, people go on these low sugar, low carb diets, and yes, the candida abates because it's got nothing to feed on. And then as soon as there's a little bit of a reintroduction of sugars, then it flares up again. So if, you know...
Well, again, she's been on this candida diet for three times now, 3 cycles. So there's something else going on.
Yes, okay. And that's right. And that's where I think, again, probably working with someone like garlic, internal garlic's fabulous. All your antifungals that you can do to help kill off the candida. Candida is also very clever at hiding under like a little biofilm. So we can actually create a little home for it in our bodies.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is where it might not be killed off, like all infections and bacteria. So, you know, getting to the underlying N-acetylcysteine is the main thing I use for, you know, how we do that and how we get rid of the biofilm, but killing off that fungus properly, because it sounds like maybe it's not being actually dealt with properly. And looking at the estrogen, perhaps.
I think it sounds important for her to work with a practitioner if it's been 3 times now going through that diet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's obviously something triggering that.
That's not working.
It might be some stress as well. You know, stress will trigger the blood sugar in the body.
I've worked with her a little bit, and it is stress, but it's helping her understand that as well. Because I think we think that I always feel like this, so I'm not stressed. But that level is your stress.
Yeah, so that's right. And it's hard to, you know, a lot of us don't quite associate stress with candida. They just don't seem to go hand in hand.
In fact, it can be one of the main factors for an increase in overgrowth.
Yes, exactly.
So we've got Alicia. Sorry if I haven't pronounced that right. You mentioned the drop in temperature and then the rise before ovulation. How much of a change is considered a dip?
Okay, so it's point of a dip. So the dip would be literally like 0.1 or 0.2 of a degree. So you want a really sensitive thermometer, a basal thermometer. And if you
get that from chemists?
Chemists, or if you want a better one, you can go online and get an actual fertility thermometer. Okay. But if you chart it, the main thing we want to see is a drop down below your, say, you know, your first 14 days, and then it should just drop and rise. So it doesn't necessarily matter how far it goes down, as long as we see some sort of drop and then a peak. You know, to me, that would indicate some sort of ovulation shift. Okay. And it's best done, I think, if you can print off a chart. There's lots of probably free downloads online. If anyone wants me to send them a chart, I've got a chart I can send. And, you know, if you chart it out, you'll actually be able to see that visually. And that's a lot easier rather than, you know, just looking at your temperature every morning. It is a lot easier if you can actually see it on a chart form.
Amazing. That ovulation chart would be good actually if you put that in the podcast
I can put that in there.
If you don't mind. That can be a freebie for everyone if they need that.
Right. Yeah.
So I'll pop the link below for everyone who wants to access all of the freebies that Jacqui's been providing all this week. Yeah. Hey Will, say hello. Anyone who's jumping on live, say hello, throw us some hearts. I hope that's answered your question, Alicia. Feel free to ask any more. Another lady here would like to find out if lichen sclerosis could be related to poor gut health.
Okay. Yes, so I've seen. Yes, I have, and I've seen that a bit in clinic over the years. And generally speaking, we treat that as a autoimmune inflammatory condition. So it's still, most people would class it as autoimmune. I definitely do. So autoimmune is always going to be gut health. So yes, gut health is going to be huge with this sort of symptoms. And the majority of clients that I've found have done the best has been reducing their inflammatory foods. So finding what is aggravating. So the gluten, the wheat, the dairy, the grains, you know, it all sounds a bit boring, but it's
we keep repeating it, but it's true.
Yes, we don't need this in our bodies. So you know, it's probably starting with one thing at a time and maybe seeing where you get some results. So maybe starting with, depending what your diet's like, but the sugars first, the most inflammatory side of things, you know, the coffee and the alcohol are pretty huge for people. And yes, definitely spending a good 3 to 6 months on the gut protocol and making sure that, you know, that healing's happening, and giving it time, because, you know, I think with some of these things, we don't know how long to treat for. And it can get a little bit confusing when you're not going through a practitioner. You know, if you're not seeing results, how do you know? So,
exactly.
And I think it does take time.
We do worry. We don't give ourselves enough time. I think a lot of people that I work with have come to me and said, "Oh yeah, I've tried this for 2 weeks." I'm like, well, that okay, let's carry that on then.
Problems. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And anyone who comes to me with a problem, I'm like, well, it's gut health.
Yeah.
Most of it generally is.
Start there. Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So lots of anti-inflammatory foods as well, you know, looking at your omegas and, you know, your pineapple and nuts and seeds.
Definitely.
And,
I might even add that into our freebie list, the anti-inflammatory foods, which I've got, which is great.
Definitely,
another question here. Lady's been trying to get pregnant, but she's taking all of these supplements for her gut health.
Okay.
So should she be taking supplements for pregnancy rather than gut health?
Okay. Or both?
Or both.
Or both. Okay.
Yeah. It's like a catch-22, chicken and egg.
Yes, it is. Gut health, obviously gut health, yes, when you are trying to conceive, very important. We would just want to be careful that obviously those, if you were using any herbals, that they are safe. Generally, we don't say herbs in the first 3 months of pregnancy. So, you know, I'd be very wary as to what she was taking if she did fall pregnant. But, you know, yes, I think there's definitely a need for gut health support throughout your whole pregnancy and breastfeeding years, because that's passing on to baby. And, you know, they're obviously sucking so much nutrients from us that if we've already got some history of gut problems, it can be a time when you suffer from a lot of gut trouble through pregnancy. So
because baby takes on mum's gut health. So
exactly.
Just getting that as good.
And we know now, the relationship with the allergies and eczema and asthma. You know, if the mum's gut isn't right, then there's more chance of allergies and even learning and behaviour disorders now they've found later in life for children that don't have a good, you know, gut health from their mother. That they're taking on.
Definitely. And I just found this out attending my breastfeeding class. That there's a protein in the breast milk that is only there for gut health, for gut bacteria.
Yeah, wow.
And I was like, wow, it just shows how important your gut health is if there's just this one ingredient there. Purely for it.
Yeah, for sure.
What else did we have? Yeah, it was just asking about the supplementation. What supplementation to take when you're trying to get pregnant.
Okay. So when trying to get pregnant, if there's no, I guess, underlying conditions, and let's say, you know, fairly healthy, I would always encourage a good absorbed multivitamin. So just making sure that, you know, the elevate side of things, I don't love personally. I don't find that's a good makeup of good nutrients.
Elevate?
So, elevate's like, you know, the main prescribed doctor's one over here.
Oh, is it?
So a lot of women go for the elevate. And for what it is and what it costs, I do find that, you know, there's definitely better multis for pregnancy out there. There's lots of pharmacies and health shops now that do offer like practitioner only nutritional support. So maybe inquiring with them to get, you know, a good, you know, I've always used the Biopractica, but there's definitely other brands for pregnancy multis practitioner. You know, that you know you're going to absorb it, you don't want to take it and it just leaves the body or doesn't absorb. It's a waste of money.
And you want a more whole food supplement than a chemical based one, which is what I use.
Absorption and that sort of thing. So, and then I think people need to really look at their minerals, because the minerals in the soil are so deficient. So, you know, yes, you might be on your multi and it might have a little bit of zinc, a little bit of iodine, but I really want my clients on a either a liquid mineral formula or like a powdered minerals with good amounts of zinc, magnesium, iodine especially, selenium. Zinc's been shown to reduce postnatal depression, so, and obviously the stretch marks and the immune system throughout your pregnancy. So, you know, a good mineral support. And then I always want people taking a probiotic. So there's probiotics specific for pregnancy. But, you know, probably anything you can get your hands on is going to be better than nothing. But ideally a pregnancy support or a prebiotic fibre. So, you know, the acacia gums, or I use a lot of prebiotics in clinic to encourage the growth of all your good bacteria. So it's not just one little bacteria we're focusing on. We want them all to thrive and flourish. Yeah. So just some gentle gut support. And for the constipation, most people, you know, hit pregnancy and hormone shift and you know, the bowels sort of bind up a little bit. So the water and the fibre can help just keep that flushing through.
Also, you tend to be given by doctors all this iron. And you may not necessarily actually be deficient in iron. And obviously it's blocking people up. So the chelated iron, you know, there's some great ones from health shops or, you know, nutritional like your Chiro or whoever you go to, that they can give you a formula that's, a lot easier to absorb and doesn't bind the gut up because, you know, that's not what we want, obviously, during pregnancy at all. No.
So lots of options.
Cool. Okay. Anyone who has any more questions? We are here just for a little bit longer. I know we've gone over a bit, but we're here. We're good to go.
Yay. Yeah.
I think that's all the questions we have, unless anyone else has got any questions.
Maybe I'll just run through. Did you want me just to run through, you know, I guess as well, people maybe just keeping in mind, and often we don't know this, is the follicle obviously in our ovaries take that 100 days to develop. So it's just that reminder that, you know, if you're thinking about falling pregnant, we need to think about what's been happening for your last 100 days, because that's the quality of your egg and your follicle that is going to be coming through at that period. So, you know, this is where we always say 3 months minimum, because that's what's, you know, going to be absorbed by those follicles and how effective they are at producing progesterone and that sort of thing. So if nothing else, you know, that 100 days before you fall pregnant or you try to conceive is really your, you know, definite time. We say we want to act like we're pregnant. So in the sense of no alcohol, no coffee, really clean diet, because we want to support that egg right from the start of the follicle development.
That's a really good point. I think people fixate on the, okay, well, why aren't I pregnant now? I've been trying for a couple of months. There must be something wrong with me.
Yeah, exactly. So, and probably keeping in mind that follicle, just so people know, they're super sensitive to all these things we've talked about. So the inflammation, the toxicity. So if you've done house renos or you've been involved with hairdressing, I see a lot, you know, grew up on a farm, have these chemicals stored in us, that's going to cause some issues with how your follicle develops and how well it matures and, you know, how strong the fertility signs are with that follicle. So, you know, looking at clearing out some toxicity stuff and looking at your liver and your gut, you know, if there's constipation or bloating and that sort of thing, clear all that up first to help your body get rid of that toxicity, so that follicle isn't struggling with all these toxins inside it.
Amazing.
It's not going to function properly. It's very,
That's perfect. What, for someone who's trying to get pregnant now, what do you want them to leave knowing? Just to brief everything that we spoke about.
So we want people knowing, take your stress seriously, you know, make that your priority, and write yourself a plan or work with a practitioner that can help you design a plan around your stress management. Address the diet. So if you know you're eating something that doesn't suit your body, then it's time to remove it, because if you can sense that doesn't work well for you, it's probably inflaming you, it's probably aggravating your gut lining. You know, get the nutrition happening, look at the gut. I do find the gut, a lot of people are constipated, a lot of people aren't using their bowels properly, so that really needs to be addressed properly, and lots of fibre, lots of water to move that through. If that's not enough, again, probably try and seek some help and assistance there. And then I do find That's probably the main things to be broad. I do love people to do a liver detox first, because I think, as you know, we are passing on genetically to our newborn child their eggs already that are carrying their children. And if there's toxicity being passed down, then, you know, that toxicity is going to be a burden to our future children and children's children. So, you know, a bit of liver detox is definitely amazing if you can get your head around it and understand it. The other thing I use is CoQ10 actually a lot in pregnancy, and that's been shown with really good results as well for energy and sustaining pregnancy. And watching your, you know, I always personally want to do someone's salivas to make sure their progesterone's at a good level before they fall pregnant. So if you go into pregnancy with low progesterone, you know, it's not great for the body in the sense of increased risk of miscarriage and spotting and bleeding and things, because the lining isn't developed enough. So, you know, as a good old saliva test for your progesterone, and if someone came back with low progesterone, I would be heavily working with that to boost that before they even really thought about falling pregnant, to reduce the risk of miscarriage.
Yes. Before we end there, because one other question's popped up about miscarriage.
Yes, okay.
What would you tell someone who had had 4 miscarriages and it had gone up to like 12 weeks and it's just...
Well, and if they hadn't done, I guess, those things maybe we talked about, that would be the first place to start, to be looking at, you know, the toxicity and the stress and the diet and that sort of thing. I do find the thyroid and the progesterone probably to be the 2 other factors there. So, you know, just subclinical thyroid problems can be enough to have trouble sustaining a pregnancy. So if your levels are anything above, you know, maybe a 2 for a TSH, and we'll go into thyroid in a few days, but you know, really looking at your thyroid side of things. And I find it's progesterone. You know, women are so stressed, we're not producing enough progesterone. You know, huge deficiencies going on there. And that's our big pregnancy maintaining hormone. So working with someone that either can, you know, prescribe you maybe some natural progesterone, or working with someone that's got, you know, access to that is going to be really important to, you know, if it's a reoccurring miscarriage issue,
something's going on.
Trying to get to the bottom of that. And I think it's a shame that in the medical system it's not looked at really straight away. I think it is until there's 3 or 4 that they won't really start testing for what's going on and why for miscarriage. So it's not often found if there's genetic problems or something going on.
Amazing. Okay, perfect. If no one's got any other questions, we are gonna finish there. Tomorrow, Jess, tomorrow we are going to be on the PCOS. So if you have questions, then we can cover that there. If you're not managing to jump on, but it'll be 10:30 tomorrow Adelaide time.
Cool.
Back to normal. So this will be posted so you can watch the replay. If you have any other questions, we're still here to answer them. And I will post the link below for you to get access to anti-inflammatory foods on that podcast vault, and also the chart for ovulation that,
I'll get that.
Jacqui will kindly share as well. Hey Jess, just finished work. Post your questions here, Jess. I answered your question further up, but you can ask more.
And maybe if people have got questions, they can still leave them below, and I might try and get to them after if people want.
Exactly, or we can cover it tomorrow morning, just as like a continuance if people need that.
For sure.
Amazing. Please share this with all of your friends and family, all of the women and men in your life who can benefit from listening to any of this. So we're here all week, women's health stuff. Thanks so much again, Jacqui.
You're welcome. Love it.
I'm glad. Good.
Having fun. Good stuff.
Fab.
Alrighty.
At least we worked out the IT.
Yeah, exactly. Win-win.
Okay, everyone. Have a lovely evening wherever you are. Or morning.
That's it.
Bye for now.
See ya.
Bye.